Young and the Restless spoilers. A dark warning. The tragedy of Tessa's fight. The shadows of Genoa City seemed darker than ever as Ian Ward, a man of diabolical cunning, returned with his accomplice, Jordan. Their plan was simple yet sinister: to send a message to the Newman family, one that would leave scars not only on their minds but also on their souls. But Ian's target wasn't Victor Newman directly, it was Sharon. Sharon, the heart of the Newman family's emotional core, was their perfect target. Breaking her would destabilize everything. However, the path to Sharon began with an unlikely pawn, Tessa Porter. The abduction. It happened on a quiet evening as Tessa was leaving the Crimson Lights Cafe. She had spent the day humming a new melody, her mind preoccupied with thoughts of Mariah, the woman she loved more than life itself. She didn't notice the van parked nearby or the figure lurking in the shadows. Before she could react, a pair of hands grabbed her, and a cloth soaked in chloroform muffled her screams. When Tessa awoke, she found herself in a dimly lit warehouse. Her wrists were bound, and her head throbbed. She quickly realized she wasn't alone. Across the room, Ian Ward sat calmly, his piercing eyes studying her every move. Jordan leaned against a wall, his demeanor cold and detached. "Let me go," Tessa demanded, her voice hoarse but firm. Ian smirked. "Ah, Tessa Porter. You're not the main event, but you're certainly going to make things interesting." Tessa's defiance. Tessa quickly realized what was happening. She wasn't just a random victim, she was bait. Ian and Jordan were using her to provoke the Newmans, to strike fear into Sharon's heart. But Tessa wasn't the kind of woman to cower in the face of danger. She fought back fiercely, refusing to be a pawn in their twisted game. She screamed, kicked over chairs, and hurled whatever she could get her hands on. At one point, she turned to Ian, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you're in control? If I get out of here, I swear I'll kill you with my bare hands." Ian raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her defiance. "Fiery, aren't we? You're wasting your energy, Tessa. No one's coming for you. And the more you fight, the worse this will get." But Tessa didn't relent. She knew that giving up wasn't an option. She had to survive, for Mariah, for herself. The breaking point. Tessa's relentless defiance began to wear on Ian and Jordan. Her screams echoed through the warehouse, her resistance making it nearly impossible for them to move forward with their plans. Ian, always the manipulator, tried to reason with her, but Tessa was beyond reasoning. "This isn't just about me," she snarled. "You're going after Sharon, aren't you? Well, guess what? You'll fail. She's stronger than you think, and so am I." Her words hit a nerve. Ian's composure cracked ever so slightly, and he turned to Jordan. "We can't keep her here. She's too unpredictable." Jordan nodded grimly. "Then we do what we have to do." A tragic decision. Tessa's fate was sealed. Ian and Jordan, desperate to maintain control, decided that her death was the only way to silence her. It wasn't a decision they made lightly, but in their twisted minds, it was necessary. When they approached her, Tessa saw the resolve in their eyes. She knew what was coming, but even then, she didn't break. "You can kill me," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "But you'll never win. The Newmans will destroy you, and Mariah, she'll never stop fighting for me." Her words lingered in the air as Ian and Jordan carried out their grim task. Tessa's life was extinguished, her vibrant spirit snuffed out in the cold, dark warehouse. The aftermath. When Mariah received the news, her world shattered. The love of her life was gone, taken from her in an act of senseless violence. The grief was overwhelming, a weight that threatened to crush her. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every corner of Genoa City reminded her of Tessa, her laughter, her music, the way her eyes lit up when they were together. Mariah's pain wasn't just emotional, it was physical, a searing ache that refused to fade. She blamed herself, wondering if there was something she could have done to prevent it. But deep down, she knew where the blame truly lay, with Ian Ward. Victor and Sharon's resolve. Victor was enraged when he learned of Tessa's death. It wasn't just the loss of a young woman, it was the brazen challenge Ian had issued. He's gone too far this time, Victor growled, his fists clenched. He'll pay for this. I'll make sure of it. Sharon, devastated by the loss and consumed by guilt, found herself at a crossroads. Ian's attack wasn't just on Tessa, it was on her entire existence. She vowed to honor Tessa's memory by standing strong and ensuring that Ian and Jordan were brought to justice. The Newman family's vow Tessa's death became a rallying cry for the Newman family. They united in their grief and their determination to stop Ian once and for all. Mariah, though broken, found strength in her love for Tessa. She promised herself that she would see justice served, no matter the cost. Victor, always the strategist, began orchestrating a plan to bring Ian and Jordan down. He wouldn't rest until they were held accountable for their crimes. And so, the battle lines were drawn. Ian Ward had struck a devastating blow, but he had also awakened a force that wouldn't rest until his reign of terror was over. This dark and emotional tale intertwines tragedy, resilience, and the enduring power of love and justice, setting the stage for an intense confrontation between the Newmans and Ian Ward. The swift goodbye, a funeral amidst chaos. The Newman family gathered in solemn silence at the Genoa City Chapel. The atmosphere was heavy with grief and unanswered questions. Tessa Porter's funeral was arranged swiftly. Not out of disrespect, but out of necessity. The Newman family needed to focus their energy on the enemies who had taken her life. The service was simple yet heartbreaking. Mariah Copeland stood at the front, clutching baby Aria tightly, her eyes swollen and red. She hadn't spoken much since Tessa's death. Words felt meaningless. How could she put into words the depth of her loss? Tessa wasn't just her partner, she was her rock, her safe haven. As the pastor spoke, recounting Tessa's vibrant life and the joy she brought to everyone around her, Mariah's mind wandered. She remembered the small moments, the way Tessa hummed while cooking, the warmth of her embrace, the songs she wrote that spoke to Mariah's soul. Aria, sensing her mother's sorrow, whimpered softly. Mariah kissed her daughter's head, whispering, "We'll get through this, baby." Somehow. But deep down, she wasn't sure how. A family's collective grief. Victor Newman, standing stoically at the back of the room, clenched his jaw as he observed the scene. He was no stranger to loss, but this death felt particularly cruel. Tessa had been a bright light in their family, a talented musician, a devoted partner to Mariah, and a loving presence for Aria. Nikki Newman tried to comfort Mariah, but her own hands trembled. She couldn't shake the image of Tessa's face when they first met, a young woman full of dreams and love for her daughter. Even Sharon, despite her own grief, tried to remain strong for her family. She placed a hand on Mariah's shoulder. "Tessa wouldn't want you to stop living, Mariah. She'd want you to fight. For her. For Aria." Mariah nodded numbly, but her eyes betrayed her disbelief. How could life go on without Tessa? Unanswered questions. As the funeral came to a close, a sense of unease lingered. Something about Tessa's death didn't sit right with Victor. Ian Ward was a master manipulator, and Victor knew better than to take things at face value. After the service, he approached Nick Newman. "Something doesn't add up," Victor said quietly. "You think Ian's lying about killing Tessa?" Nick asked, skeptical. Victor's eyes narrowed. "I wouldn't put it past him. This could be part of his plan to weaken us. Keep your eyes open." Mariah's struggle back at home. Mariah tried to resume some semblance of normalcy for Aria's sake, but the weight of Tessa's absence was unbearable. She avoided the piano in the living room, where Tessa had spent hours composing. She couldn't bear to listen to music, it all reminded her of Tessa. Late at night, Mariah found herself staring at an old photo of them, taken during a road trip. Tessa's smile was radiant, her eyes full of life. "You promised we'd grow old together," Mariah whispered, her voice breaking. "How could you leave me like this?" Aria stirred in her crib, and Mariah wiped her tears, forcing herself to be strong. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A part of her refused to believe that Tessa was truly gone. The suspicious circumstances. While the Newman family mourned, Victor began digging deeper. His private investigator uncovered a troubling detail: there was no official confirmation of Tessa's death. No body had been released to the family. Ian Ward and Jordan claimed responsibility, but there was no tangible proof. Victor shared his findings with Sharon and Nick. "It's possible Tessa's alive," he said, his voice grave. Sharon's eyes widened. "If that's true, why would Ian lie about killing her?" Victor's expression darkened. "To manipulate us. To distract us while he carries out his real plan." A glimmer of hope. Victor's suspicions breathed life into Mariah's shattered heart. When he told her about the possibility that Tessa might still be alive, her reaction was a mix of disbelief and cautious hope. "Do you really think she's out there?" Mariah asked, her voice trembling. Victor placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "If Ian's behind this, there's always more to the story. I'll do everything in my power to find out the truth." For the first time since the funeral, Mariah felt a spark of hope. If there was even the slightest chance that Tessa was alive, she wouldn't rest until she brought her home. The writer's dilemma: a death or a twist. Behind the scenes, fans of Genoa City's drama speculated about Tessa's fate. Her death felt too sudden, too convenient. Tessa Porter was a beloved character, integral to the storylines surrounding Mariah and the Newman family. Could the writers have really written her off so abruptly? Or was this another one of their famous twists, designed to keep viewers on edge? Some clues hinted at the latter. Tessa's death was shown off-screen, a classic move for soap operas when a character's fate is meant to remain ambiguous. Additionally, Ian Ward's reputation for deception added fuel to the theory that Tessa's death was staged. The bigger picture: as Victor and Mariah delved deeper into the mystery, they began to uncover a larger plot. Ian Ward's obsession with the Newmans went beyond revenge. He was playing a long game, using Tessa's supposed death as a diversion while he orchestrated his next move. Meanwhile, somewhere in the shadows, Tessa clung to hope. Bound and trapped, she refused to give up. She knew Mariah would never stop looking for her, and she held on to the belief that love would lead her home. A cliffhanger ending the story reached a boiling point as the Newmans closed in on Ian's location. The final scene showed Mariah standing in the middle of a dimly lit warehouse, her voice shaking as she called out, "Tessa? Are you here?" A faint noise came from the shadows, and Mariah's heart raced. Could it really be her? And then, the screen faded to black, leaving the question unanswered.